And we're going. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is Rob Kalman. I'm coming to you live from Michigan. Thanks for joining our, the fifth in a series of free meetups for the Michigan Agile community and, of course, all of Anu's friends all over North America. And we have Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio, we've got Georgia. I'm sure lots of other places, but welcome. I own Michigan Technology Services out in Farmington Hills. And for those of you out of state, it's a suburb of Detroit. We're a few minutes outside, and we run everything agile. Same thing that Anu does. We do a lot of Scrum Alliance courses. So if you want to learn about it, feel free to look at michiganagiletraining.com. Of course, I'm coming to you from home like all the rest of you. As I said before, just keep in mind, I hit the record button. We're recording the session, so people who can't make it with us today will be able to watch this, and we'll do it. We'll repeat it for them. Anu, I'm going to let her give a little introduction about herself, but I met her at the Scrum Alliance gathering last year. She might not remember, but because there were I think a couple thousand people almost, and she was the MC for the big events. But I introduced myself and I listened to her a couple times, and I was really impressed with her presence and the skills she brought forth. So I asked her to do the meetup today and talk about advanced Scrum Master skills, and she agreed. And so she's coming to us live. The game plan for you, we're going to let her present for about 35 minutes or so, 35, 40 minutes. Then we'll have some time for questions and answers, and we'll wrap it up with some discussions about future meetups. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat feature on the bottom. I'll take a look at it. But Anu.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Anu Smalley. I'm from West Grove, Pennsylvania. It's a little town on the border of Pennsylvania and Delaware. In the middle of the boonies, there's nothing around us except mushroom farms and horse farms. So we're staying safe from all this COVID stuff, hopefully. Fingers crossed. When Rob asked me, hey, would you be willing to do a meetup or let's talk about Scrum Master stuff? We started talking about advanced Scrum Master skills. And then based on conversations I've had with people, I said, one of the things I want to talk about is coaching skills for Scrum Masters. This is something we don't often do. We just assume people know how to coach or what it is to be a coach. So I thought we'd dig into that. I will make sure at the end of this session, you have a PDF of my slides. I'm also going to give you 2 additional documents at the end that will help you to continue your coaching skills as you move along. Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm a certified Scrum trainer. I work for myself. I run Kapala Consulting Group, which I recognize it's not on this intro. And I'm like, wait, what's the name of my company? And it's not there, but okay. My email is there, my phone number is there, and I think that's my Twitter account. I'm not a social media savvy person, as you may tell, but I have 2 young daughters. They keep me up to date. I figured out how to use a lot of social media through them. So this is me. I'm an Agile coach. I'm a Scrum trainer. I consult, coach, and train just like Rob does. My biggest thrill is to teach people how to coach and to become better coaches. That's what I love doing the most. So this kind of became perfect for me to do this thing about coaching. So that's what we're going to focus on. So you're all, hopefully you're familiar with this. There are 4 core competencies for a Scrum Master, right? We talk about Scrum Master core competencies. As a Scrum Master, you coach, you mentor, right? Those are 2 things that go hand in hand. And then you're a facilitator and you're a trainer. Of these 4, as I was trying to think of what I want to focus on this session, facilitation is good. I think there's definitely space to do facilitation and training as skills as well. But what we're going to focus here is this coaching skill right here, right? We're going to dig through some very basic skills, and hopefully we'll have a discussion at the end about what you've learned or what else you might want to be willing to learn. So I'm going to ask you a question, and what I'd like you to do is type in the chat window, if you wouldn't mind, the answer to that question. What is a coach? What do you think is a coach? So type in the chat window if you wouldn't mind, so we can see people typing and seeing what they say. I'll put my glasses on so I can read. A supporter, mentor, yeah, motivator. Someone who brings the best out of everyone, developer of people, someone who supports and challenges, provides guidance and supports change behavior, someone who helps you see your own abilities. A coach is someone who can help you unlock your potential and help you get on a journey of self-discovery. Nice, Linda. Um, Someone who guides a team or an individual to solve problems without providing a solution. Absolutely. The coach is a person who guides people towards the next step. Coach is an experienced person, encourages your growth, helps you be the best you. You guys know what a coach is. Why do you need this meetup then? This is actually good. A lot of times when I go into, when I talk to people and I ask them, what is a coach? They say a coach is somebody who will tell me what to do. That is not it. That's more like a mentor, right? You go to a mentor, you find somebody to be a mentor because they are where you would like to be. They are who you want to be when you're all grown up, and you go, ooh, I want to be that. So what can I do? And they might tell you, read this book and go to this conference or take this class. And absolutely, coaching is easier said than done, right? Everybody thinks coaching is easy, but coaching is one of the hardest things I've ever learned how to do and how to do well. A coach is somebody, as you've said here, is somebody who is not directive, is somebody who's just a shepherd, a guide, somebody who'll help you figure out what is it that you need to do next. The other people who unlock your potential, I love that last one from Krishna. Ask the right questions and direct in the right path. So they say, wait, let me ask you some questions so you can figure out stuff for yourself. Has anybody here has had a really bad coaching experience? If you have, would you be willing to talk to me about it? Yes, no?
Can we share story from other people?
Sure, I'd be happy to hear a story. So something where coaching went bad. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so it's a friend of mine, and she was being coached by this coach,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like an hour. And after the end of the session, and my friend wanted to cry, and not happy tear, like that kind of wow awakening or enlightenment. It's more about she never felt this small,
Oh,
that like the coach kind of put her down because she
yeah,
keep criticizing, that's not what that is, that's not what that is. So at the end she felt so like she feels like she didn't know anything, like that
yeah,
person made her feel so small.
yeah. And that's the opposite of what we want to do as a coach, right? We want to make sure our teams actually are growing and are motivated to do what they are doing best, um, right? And so so I had the opposite experience one time where somebody who I had gone to for coaching just sat me down and went the other extreme of what I call being completely tree huggy and woo woo, right? They went the other direction, said, so what does your soul say about this problem? And I'm sitting there going, I'm dealing with a scrum team. What does my soul have to do with this? So coaching is not neither, right? It's not about, why don't you tell me what you want to do? If somebody's coming to you for coaching help, that means they're looking for something specific. And our job as a coach is to figure out what it is. If you're coaching a scrum team, you can go and tell them, a brand new scrum team, if you go up and say, tell me what you don't know, that was not going to go anywhere. So your job as a coach is to observe and then figure out what is missing and then help them figure out how to fix that thing. But your job actually is to figure out what it is that they need to work on. Because they're coming to you because they don't know what they don't know, right? So this is something I took from Matthias, and I think it's just so, it just brings to point what we are just saying, right? My role as a coach, I am not your leader, I'm not your boss, I don't make decisions for you, and I'm not your cheerleader, which means just because you want me to go rah-rah, I'm not going to go rah-rah. If you're not doing the right thing, I'm going to call that out. I'm not going to go rah-rah over you. So if your teams are not doing the right thing, you can't just be a rah-rah person. Your job is to make sure they're doing Scrum right. You will guide and you will give feedback, and we'll talk a little bit about what kind of feedback to give in a little bit. You are going to suggest for things to try. You're going to hold them accountable for things to try. You're going to hold up the mirror and say, hey, if you think you're doing this well, let me show you what it looks like from the other end. The only way they're going to figure out what they're doing or not doing is by self-awareness of what they need to fix in themselves, right? And you may even challenge them. What you need to do all of this stuff, in order for you to be able to do this stuff, you need their trust and you need their permission. You cannot coach somebody without their permission. If you do, you're going to keep hitting those walls because they'll keep throwing up walls in front of them, right? So this is your higher role as a coach. You're trying to figure this out. So I'm going to step into something from Lisa Atkins. Hopefully everybody is familiar with who Lisa Atkins is. So Lisa talks about in her, there's a paper, and I'm going to send that paper to you as well as a PDF attached to it. So Lisa talks about this thing called a coaching stance. And she says, anytime we are coaching, this is what we have to look at. We have to look at how are we being? What are we doing? How are we standing? Just like if you're playing baseball, you have a particular stance. You know, you hold your elbows up and put your legs in, and how do you stand? If you're playing football or hockey or whatever you're playing, or if you're a dancer, you have a particular stance. Whatever that stance is, for coaching, there is a stance. And this is the place you're always in when you're coaching. You have to be aware of this. And what this coaching stance is about, there are 5 things in this coaching stance. 1, you must maintain neutrality. And this is key. The minute you are no longer neutral, you are useless as a coach. The minute you're emotionally engaged with your client, you're done. Because you're no longer going to be able to look at what is their agenda. You are going to say, oh, I feel, right? And if you at any point believe you are not neutral, you got to step away from that role of a coach. You have to serve the client's agenda. You may believe that Scrum is the best thing next to sliced bread. But if the client is saying, no, we need to do Kanban, you can't force them to do stuff. You have to follow their agenda. You have to meet them where they are. This is their thing. You are not the person in control of their destiny. They are. So you have to work on their agenda at all times. Reducing client.
Anu, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you mentioned that if the client is using Kanban, then we have to adhere to Kanban, right?
No. Okay. I'm saying you need to meet them where they are. You can't force them to, you cannot say, oh, Kanban's crap, just come to Scrum. You have to understand what they're trying to do, work on their agenda, and then maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right. You have no idea until you actually figure out what they're trying to do.
So as a coach, would you recommend them to adapt anything better, or would you just...
As a coach, I wouldn't know anything to recommend to them unless I went and observed. If somebody comes to me and says, hi, I know you do Scrum coaching, but I do Kanban. Can you help me come coach me in Kanban? I'm not going to jump down and say, well, Kanban doesn't really work well. You should do Scrum. I'm going to look at what they're doing, why they're doing Kanban. Maybe Kanban is the best. And even though I'm a Scrum coach, I might step in and say, you know what? I think you're right. Kanban is the best for you. And I'm not a Kanban coach. I'm going to bring in Rob. He's a Kanban coach, and maybe he can be of better use to you. It's not your agenda. It has to be what the client needs. That's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense, Ravi?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Not colluding. So this is where when we talked about, when I said, I'm not going to be your cheerleader, right? I'm not going to become part of your system. This is one of the reasons why I do not, me personally, it's a personal choice for me. I don't do embedded coaching anymore because it's really hard not to collude. If you're at a client site for 5 years, you're part of the system now, right? And if you're colluding with the client, you are not going to be able to be objective and neutral and give them this outside view of what's happening in their system. So just because the client is doing something, so this is the opposite of serving the client's agenda. And I know I missed one, I'm going to come back to that. So not colluding is even though you're serving the client's agenda, if Kanban is the wrong thing for them, you're not going to say, yes, go Kanban just so you hire me. So you are going to still not collude, but serve their agenda. So reducing client dependence. Your job as a coach is not to make them addicted to you. Your job is to make them bigger. Your job is to make them whole. The story that Linda told us, this person came away crying. That means they reduced them. They didn't make them bigger and whole. So your job is to make sure that they are not completely, they can't function without you. Our job is to challenge them to grow beyond what they are currently doing. And then finally, the signature presence. This is absolutely key. This means as a coach, you have to be authentic. You may see Rob teach you coaching. You may see Shikha do something, or Linda do something, or Elizabeth do something, me do something. You can take what we are doing, but you have to make it your own voice. What is your signature presence there? You cannot copy other people and be a great coach. You can take something somebody else is doing and say, ooh, that was good. But if you try and do exactly what Linda is doing, for example, it may fall flat because that's who Linda is. You have to be your authentic self when you're being a coach. So you have to figure out what is your signature presence. And I see a question there. I'm going to hold the question. I'm going to keep moving if you don't mind until we finish it, and then we come back to questions. Is that okay? Cool. Okay, so I'm going to teach you 3 things that I believe are super important for you to be a coach. 3 basic skills. First is this thing of active listening, right? So this is actively listening to what people are doing. People have heard about this. Many of you may be very familiar with this. So in active listening, we talk about 3 levels of listening. Internal listening, or level 1 listening, is when you are listening to respond. So waiting to respond is not the same as listening. Most of us stay here. So when somebody's talking, like when Linda was telling you that story, how many of you went, oh yeah, I know that too. Oh, you know what? That happened to me one time. That's your level 1 listening. The minute somebody is talking, you're putting yourself into the story and you're thinking back to your own experiences and saying, oh, I know exactly how that feels because when I did that, it felt like this. And when you stop talking, I'm going to tell you about this. That's your level 1 listening. We all do this, listening to respond. The level 2 listening is called focused listening or listening to understand. This is all your attention is focused on this one person. And you're not distracted by stuff. A lot of times the example we give in this for focused listening is, think about a mother with a sick baby or a parent with a sick baby. It doesn't matter what's happening outside, the attention is completely focused on this child, right? I was telling Rob just before everybody joined, my 19-year-old is going to a peaceful protest today. And part of me is here, but one part of me is there going, oh dear God, please keep her safe. So that's, eventually once this is over, I'm going to be focused on her until she gets back home. That's focused attention, focused listening. As a Scrum Master, this is where you need to be, minimally. right? Focus listening. One of my techniques in staying in listening to somebody, just paying attention to what somebody's saying, is called voice mirroring, right? It is known as voice mirroring. Usually when you're listening and you get distracted by your own stories is because your mind is going somewhere else. Voice mirroring is when you speak, I'm repeating your words in my head. When that happens, my mind really doesn't have space to go anywhere else. So I'm focused. So this is a technique that I've used often to pay attention to what people are saying. And that has worked for me. A lot of other coaches have other techniques, right? Voice mirroring usually keeps you on target. For me, it works for about 40 minutes. After that, my brain does take a break, right? You cannot really focus beyond that. So that's level 2 listening. Level 3 listening is what we call global listening. This is where if you're coaching your team, you may be looking at one person, but you're aware of what's happening elsewhere with the other team members, so that you are able to say, oh, wait, what's happening there? You're able to bring that into the conversation. There is something called facilitative. Am I always paranoid when people are watching? Am I going to spell words wrong? So if I'm spelling words wrong, just ignore them. Facilitative listening techniques. This was given, I read of this first time in a book by a gentleman named Sam Kaner. It's a facilitation book. Even though it's a facilitation book, when you're coaching, you can use a lot of these facilitative listening techniques to work with a larger team. Okay, so 3 levels of listening. Internal listening, which is listening to respond, focused listening, which is listening to understand, and global listening, or making sure you're working with everything in your environment to help an individual or a team. So that's technique number 1, listening, active listening. Okay. The second technique I want to talk about is powerful questions, also known as open-ended questions, sometimes called Socratic questions, whatever you call them. This is more about, tell me more what you're looking for. How does that make you feel? What else have you tried, right? The reason we do this is all the reasons you talked about in the beginning. I am going to help my client realize for themselves how wonderful they are, unlock their potential. So you want to make sure you're talking to people in a way that makes them think about where they are, where they want to be, and then unlock their own potential. So powerful questions is great. Here is a short list of examples. What I'm also going to provide to you at the end is 2 pages of powerful questions. This is from the Coactive School of Coaching, which I do a lot of coactive coaching. So in one of the classes I took, they gave me 2 pages of powerful questions that I'm sharing with you. It's also available on their website. So that it's really good. And it talks different about, so if you're looking at, let me show you. So it's this, right? So if you're looking at exploration, so you ask these questions. So if you're looking at some clarification, depending on what the situation is, you might have a different question to ask. I was talking to somebody just the other day and they said, so I feel like when I was coaching this person, I got stuck. I didn't know what questions to ask. Here's a technique I've done, and it's worked for me always. I print out those questions, or I have them handy on my iPad. And if I ask something and we are talking and I'm going, ooh, I don't know where to go now. I need a couple of minutes to think, or I need just a clarity break to think. I usually go, that was a very interesting statement. I'm going to need 30 seconds to think through where I want to go next. And then I scroll through my questions and something pops up and I try it. It's just amazing how a powerful question can open up. One of my favorite questions is, what else? It's amazing what else brings up. Yes, tell me more, right? Tell me more. What else? Is just amazing, core, powerful questions that can get you going. Right? So that's technique number 2, asking powerful questions. Just practice asking powerful questions. Sometimes these questions will feel like, that does not feel like what I want to ask. Like, what would it feel like if you could do it better? You're like, if I could do it better, I would know what it is. Exactly. But if you could imagine that, how would you ask? I was observing in one of a coaching class I was taking. I was observing a coaching session, and the coach said, "So if you knew more about this, what would you know?" And I'm going, "Huh? If I knew more about this, what would I know?" And I was thinking, I'm like, that's a dumb question, is what I'm thinking. And the person who was getting coached reacted the same way. He goes, if I knew something, I don't understand. He goes, yeah, okay, tell me more. If you knew something, what would you know? And he's going, I don't know where to go with this. And he kept pushing there. And all of a sudden, they continued to have a half an hour conversation about the things this person knew if he knew. It's just about staying. If you believe that's the right question to ask, stay. Just stay with the question. This is one of the biggest things you can do, right? Just because your team or your client goes, I don't know about that, don't abandon the question if you believe it's the right question to ask. So that's the second one. So active listening, powerful questions. The third technique I want to talk about is feedback, right? Somebody had mentioned making sure we do feedback. So I want to talk about some feedback. I coach and teach that there are 3 types of feedback that exist. One is performance feedback. This is what we do not want to do. As a coach, we do not want to, like what Linda was saying, that's bad, criticizing somebody, right? It's not your job to do performance feedback. That is somebody else's job. Your job as Scrum Master is to focus on anything but performance. So there are 2 types of feedback I want you to focus on as a Scrum Master. One, when you're giving somebody feedback, right? This is giving feedback. We're going to do something called impact feedback. And what this is you're going to tell people not about their behavior. You're going to tell people about the impact of that behavior on you. So if somebody's coming to a meeting late all the time, instead of saying, Shika, why are you late to my meetings all the time? Shika's reaction is going to be a wall goes up, she gets defensive, and she goes, well, I was coming out of that other meeting and I have this and I have that. And it's just going to get worse. Instead of that, if you say, Shika, when you come late to my meetings, I feel like you're not being respectful to me. And instantly, 99% of the time, the reaction is, oh, I don't mean disrespect. Now there's a possibility for a conversation. And impact feedback is really good, especially if you're trying to coach managers and their teams are coming to you and saying, oh, my manager is a micromanager. You walk up to that manager and say, Kevin, you need to stop micromanaging your teams. And Kevin's going to go, who the hell are you to tell me how to do with my teams? They're my teams. Ooh, fists have gone up, defenses have gone up. But if you walk up and say, hey, Kevin, the thing I've noticed, when you're asking the teams to do something in a certain way, I'm noticing the morale going down on the team. Do you notice the same thing? I've said the same thing in different ways. I've told him the impact of what's happening when he does or says something, not on his behavior. The minute you go to behavior, you're doing performance, right? This is performance feedback. Your behavior is bad. We want to talk about impact. This is when you're giving. Perfection game is when you are receiving. Did I spell that right? IE. Damn it. Is it IE or EI?
You were right the first time.
Damn
Yeah.
it.
Good, you have an eraser.
Good thing I have a razor. IE, right? Okay.
CRECEI, right? VING.
EEI.
I'll fix it before I send it to you as a PDF. How's that? Okay. Let's not go into my spelling abilities at 5:35 on a Thursday afternoon. So this is when you're receiving feedback. So if you're asking somebody for feedback, and you should be, every time you facilitate a meeting or get out of a coaching session or whatever, ask for feedback. And you're going to say, so there's this concept called the perfection game. And this perfection game actually comes from something called the core protocols. This was created by Jim McCarthy. Jim and Michelle McCarthy, they've, and Michelle, I should put her name down too. So they created a set of protocols, which they call core protocols. Perfection game is one of them. The way it works is, so I have, thank you, Sapna. I've done this session and I say, okay, hey guys, I did this session on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, 1 being like as far away from perfect as you can get. Can you give me a rating and give me one thing that can help me towards perfection? So it's not just about, okay, you were a 7, moving on. Okay, what can I do to make it an 8? What can I do to make it an 8.5 or a 9 or whatever? So perfection game is constantly asking for feedback and making sure that you're asking people to help you improve your own self. Okay, so 3 techniques we talked about: active listening, powerful questions, and different types of feedback. These are core foundational coaching skills. If you can master these, you can pretty much walk into any coaching situation and be okay. Okay, we're going to share one more thing and then we'll get into questions. So this is the arc of the coaching conversation, and I realize that there is no heading on this slide. So this is the arc of the coaching conversation. And the way this works is, this is where you start. You start here and you end here. You start with, as a coach, the first thing you do is you ask for permission, right? You ask for, how you doing? What do you want to talk about today? What situation do we want to solve today? Just that is asking for permission. So as a coach, you're listening, the coachee or the team are saying, oh my God, this sprint was a disaster. Everything blew up, and they're venting. You go next to articulating the topic. You cannot solve everything in their lives. So you're going to figure out what is a topic we want to focus on. You're going to bring things down to saying, okay, here's what I want to focus on. Here's the issue. We didn't finish our sprint commitments. What happened? Let's go there, right? You're going to talk about this. So you realize until here, we haven't even talked about fixing it. We're not talking about fixing anything until we get to about here. Because we want to make sure, once you identify a problem, we want to make sure we are diving deep to identify root causes. We identify the root cause. We figure this out. We are figuring out through powerful questions. When else has this happened? What else have you noticed? How many times have we seen this kind of behavior? How many times when have we seen this pattern? Ask questions. Once you get here, this is where you're saying, okay, I think we figured out the root cause of what's happening here, or what is the problem. Now you start brainstorming ideas. So you look at this, you've gone through this entire arc here, and you haven't talked about solutioning yet. You start solutioning and brainstorming here. Then you also figure out, okay, once you get some ideas, you're going to talk about how do you hold yourself, who is going to be accountable? How are you going to hold that person accountable? How are you going to hold your team accountable? So it's more than just saying, oh, okay, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's about, okay, you said you were going to do this. Who's going to do this by when? So this is those, making sure there's a name to a task rather than, we're going to do stuff, because stuff never gets done. Right? So the arc of the coaching conversation is important, whether you're coaching an individual or whether you're working with a team. This is absolutely critical to keep in your mind. I've often, when I first started coaching, I would keep this handy because what I wanted to do was from here, I want to go here. I want to fix your problem. I want to solve right now. I want to solve whatever you're doing because I'm not actively listening. I'm listening to respond, and I go from here to here. I go straight like this. So how do you avoid that? I used to keep this handy in front of me and say, okay, so now I need to do some of this stuff. And it's absolutely okay to do that. Nobody starts off by being a brilliant coach. And you are going to fail, and you're going to bomb, and you're going to be brilliant all at the same time. And that's absolutely okay. If you come across the other end and you say, I've been a coach for 5 years and I've never bombed, then you've never coached. Then all you've done is provide advice and you've been mentoring, right? So you have to be aware of that. So these are the things that have helped me become a better coach. I'm going to pause at that now and see if you want to go back to questions. So there was a question earlier on, right?
Yeah. Anu, do you want to let people jump in on video and audio, or you just want to use the chat function for questions?
Whichever works for them.
All right. Yeah. Some people get comfortable chatting, and some people like to be on camera. So
whatever works for you. So there was one question on chat, I believe.
Yeah, it was earlier.
As a coach, how do you handle when someone asks your opinion on a topic? I usually turn that back into a powerful question and say, interesting topic. What do you think of it? Why don't you go first? Because if their opinion is 180 to your opinion and you speak first, you've shut them down. You're done. So you want to make sure you're not providing opinion. I have that a lot of time. People say, so what do you think of that? And my usual reaction is, that's interesting. Before I tell you what I think of that, let me ask you a few questions. So they know that I'm going to tell them my opinion or whatever, or at least they believe that, but I want to dig more into that. That's my approach.
Very cool. So if anybody has questions, feel free to, one at a time so we don't talk over each other. You can either Anu or I could read the chat question, or you can go right now. Feel free to jump in.
So this is Jamie. I have a question if nobody else has one right now.
Jump in, Jamie.
So what I'm wondering is, what is the best course of formal training that you recommend for Scrum Masters for coaching? Because there's all sorts of different kinds of coaching out there, but ones that you think would be specifically useful for Scrum Masters, is it the coactive coaching or?
Yeah, okay, let me do this here. So there are different types of coaching, right? So you can do, there's Scrum, well, actually, let me go and say Agile. So there's Agile, learning how to coach an Agile team. Right? For this, my opinion, I see Agile has some good certification classes. So they do a bunch of coaching classes. If you want to dig more into this, shoot me an email. I can get you more information on this. They have, right now, there are a lot of people doing these IC Agile certifications as well. So focusing on Agile, you stay there and you look at who the different people are. I would have one suggestion for you. If you are going to jump in and spend a lot of money and finding a class, I would try and make sure that person is a certified coach. If you don't know what to do, come back to Rob, ask him. I'm sure Rob has some recommendations of people who not only are good coaches, but also train well, because not every good coach can train well and not every good trainer is a good coach. You know what I mean? So there are people to just find the right person for you. Then if you look at general coaching, I want to look at coaching in general. There are multiple schools of thought. There's coactive, and this is through CTI, right? Coactive coaching, this is through CTI. They have, the way they work is it's 5 classes, and then there's a 6-month certification. And all of these will lead to your ICF, or International Coaching Federation certification, right? All of these will help you get towards it. Then you have the ORSC, or the Organizational Relationship Systems Coaching. They are very similar. This is through CCR Global. They also have 5 classes, I believe, and they have a certification path. So ORSC and Coactive are very closely tied because the people who created ORSC actually started from Coactive. The final school of, there are 2 other schools that I would advise you to do some research on. One is called Somatic Coaching. Right? This is from the Strozzi Institute. They also have a series of classes. They have classes plus certification. I have never taken a somatic class. I'm starting my first somatic class in June. Oh, this is June. Oh, crap. I'm starting my first somatic class this month. God, this is June. Oh, wow. And if you want to wait till the end of June, I'll tell you what it is like. I have a book that I've been reading on somatic coaching. It's this book, The Art of Somatic Coaching. I'll put it up here as well. It's an interesting concept where somatic coaching believes that you got to embody coaching rather than just feel from your head or your heart. And then the last one is brain-based or neuro-based. This is the person who used to lead it was Doug Sillisby. He passed away, but there are other people who are continuing his work. So these are the main 4 schools, right? You have coactive, or somatic, and brain and neuro-based. What I did, honestly, I took each one of these, coactive and ORSC has fundamental classes. I took both of them and decided that coactive was what I wanted to do first, and I started there. Coactive has a book as well. There's a book here. There's a book here. I don't think ORSC has a book per se, but there is a book by Doug as well. So read a book. If you want to dig deeper into these schools, I'm happy to have a conversation with you as well, because I'm a learner, so I'm learning everything.
All right, thank you so much.
Long answer to your question, Jamie.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should Scrum Master as a coach be emphasized as a team is formed so the teams do not view this role as from a team? Help me understand that question, Mahesh. So that the teams do not view this role from a delivery perspective. I don't understand that. Mahesh?
You there? You might have lost him.
Okay, I'm going to make a wild guess that this means that they are not looked upon as active dev team members or somebody who's managing work rather than coaching the team. I'm going to make a wild guess that that's what you mean here. And absolutely, I think that's one of the biggest things in the Scrum Guide. It talks about Scrum Master is the coach, but most organizations don't realize that. They believe Scrum Master is to do the 4 meetings and that's it. But your job is to coach the team and every individual. And if you're really coaching, you're not going to have time to worry about any delivery things, whatever that might mean. I don't know if that answered your question, but Donna, what steps would you take with an organization that is agreeable in the beginning to coaching? And welcome to all our worlds. This is what every organization is like. They all start with saying, oh my God, coaching is amazing, we should do that. And then they say, oh my God, these coaches are really expensive. We don't need them. You've been coached for 2 seconds. You don't need any more coaching. You're good. I usually bring in, so this me for that, what that means to me is that that organization's leaders need a little bit more coaching as well. For me, I always love to bring in analogies and metaphors. And one of my favorite metaphors is sports. So you look at the most amazing people, sports people in the world, right? I don't know. Peyton Manning, he's my favorite, so I'm going to go there, right? Peyton Manning, I mean, he always had a coach, even when he was at the peak of his career, whatever team he was with, he always had a coach. You look at the greatest tennis player, Serena Williams, they're amazing at what they do, but they still have a coach. And they always go back to, let's make sure we have fundamentals. So coaching is not about teaching something, it's about keeping up the skills and making sure you're continuously getting better. An organization needs to understand that the only hope they have of becoming a phenomenally agile organization is to become a learning organization. And a learning organization requires some serious coaching in there. I don't know if I answered your question, Donna.
Anu, I have 2 questions. Can I go ahead and ask?
Absolutely.
I was just going to say you did. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks. This is Shrikant. So one question was, if you're a techie, right, you would put your hat yourself as a techie. Now getting to a coach, if there's any technical issues, you would, get carried away with this, but you just have to wear a different hat of being a coach. That's 2 different things of a behavior, which I would feel it's very difficult and it should be very adaptive. And the second part was added to those of your institutes. I also find LinkedIn doing some coaching. Do you suggest that or not?
What?
The LinkedIn also has some coaching things going on.
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know any of, so for me, all of these 4 lead into ICF coaching. And that is the main credential for coaches, the International Coaching Federation. I'm not familiar with what LinkedIn is doing. For your first thing, I would say, the Scrum Master Delivery Lead, I think that's what you're talking about. So that's why you cannot be 2 roles.
I know. I try to superimpose the same questions,
yeah.
Yes, but sometimes you tend to carry.
And that's normal because you're human, right? If you are a tech lead or a delivery lead, and you're also the team Scrum Master, you're going to do only one of these roles really well. You cannot do both at the same time. It's impossible. Human brain doesn't work that way. Because you're a tech lead, you're going to go, oh, I have an answer. Let me give you the answer. And coaching goes out the window. And a lot of times, if, as Mahesh was saying, if in the beginning you started off by focusing on the delivery lead or that, then that means that when you're coaching, your teams might go, why aren't you sharing your knowledge with us? What are you hiding? So you got to start on the right foot, right? If you're going to be a coach, you got to be a coach. If you're going to be a tech lead, you be a tech lead. You cannot be both. So if you have, I also want to talk a little bit about Scrum Alliance and their coaching certifications. So I don't know what certifications any of you have. So at Scrum Alliance, you have, your foundational CSM, CSPO, and then you do your A classes, and then you do your CSP classes, either SM or PO, whichever one. Once you do this, your next level of certification is you're either going to a CTC, that's your next step, which is Certified Team Coach, focusing on the team. And the Scrum Alliance is doing a lot of effort now to help people into the CTC role. There is, if you go to the Scrum Alliance website, they actually have a learning lab there. They have a learning platform where you can get in and take some free, their initial classes are free. There's a Slack group as well for Path to CTC. So look that up, the Path to Coaching. It's a whole program on Scrum Alliance to help you become a CTC, which is at the team level. Once you become a CTC, your next step is the CEC, or the Certified Enterprise Coach. There is no, right now they're focusing on the CTC at the moment. They're trying to make sure we build up a program to get people to CTC. And once you are a CTC, there are numerous CECs who will mentor you. They're about to create a mentoring program to help you become a CEC. They are also trying to figure out how to connect a CEC to ICF. It was in the books this year, but COVID-19 has kind of changed everybody's plans. So right now, a CEC doesn't really give you a ICF path, but they're working on trying to figure out what that might look like. I am not going to hold my breath for 2020. I'm going to think that will be 2021. But I'm a Scrum Alliance fan, just like Rob. So, if you're interested in doing the CTC and you can't find this learning webinar or learning lab, ping me. Or what we can do is we can actually send you some links to that, maybe, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always point out that, I am a big Scrum Alliance fan. I know some really, really great certified team coaches and enterprise coaches. And the best ones are also willing to, have a conversation with you and help guide you.
Yeah.
And I know somebody just said, well, that's a lot. There are a lot of coaching tracks out there. There's so much information. I mean, you could spend your whole past 2 months, I could have spent just researching everything. Agile. But, and by the way, I was going to give a plug. Anu is teaching the CSP SM class we're collaborating August, was it 3rd, 4th, and 5th? So if you're at that level, Anu's going to teach a 3-day workshop on the Certified Scrum Professional, Scrum Master, which will definitely help you reach your path to, where you want to go.
And be open-minded to the fact that some of these coaching certifications may not be for you. Some of those may land better for you. Do your research. If you say, I need more help, I'm happy to answer questions, but just keep one thing in mind. I answer questions on my schedule, not on your schedule. My schedule is insane. So be patient when you're asking me a question. The class in August is a virtual class. Rob was just asking me at the beginning, when are you going to do an in-person class? I'm like, not in 2020. I'm not leaving the house. Having been sick the last time around, I'm too nervous. So the class is virtual. It's a 3-day class. You will have pre-work every day of the class. You'll have some homework, and at the 3rd day of the class, you will have some post-class work that you finish. You'll have a couple of weeks to get that done. Even if you have your CSP, I think I've had lots of people in my classes come in just to learn stuff, not to get the certification because they already have their CSP.
Right.
How did I get started in Scrum? I have a weird story that meanders all over the world before I come to Scrum. But I was working at an organization where I was managing their IT department. It was a large organization. I had 180 people reporting to me. I was heading up the IT organization, and I just got sick and tired of IT. And I said, that's it, I'm done, I quit. And I went and became, from that position, I went to a company that's a smaller company, and I joined their training and consulting organization as director of technology. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with IT, nothing. I'm done with IT. I've been IT 25 years, I'm done. My boss came to me one day and said, didn't you used to work in IT? I'm like, why? He says, well, I just came out of a meeting with IT and they talk about some fangled stuff they want to try in IT. I don't know what the heck they were talking about. I figured if anybody in my team you have the best shot of understanding what's coming out of their mouth because you used to be them one time. So they asked for a volunteer and I volunteered you. I'm like, what did you volunteer me for? He said, I don't know, some nimble thing that they want to do. I'm like, nimble thing? God, what is he getting me into? That was agile. He was trying to say agile. He couldn't remember the word agile. He said nimble. I talked to the IT department and they said, yeah, we're doing this Scrum thing. And their idea of Scrum was we're going to do a daily stand-up and we're going to do burn downs. And for the next 1 year, I thought that was doing Scrum, right? I had no training, nothing. I was a Scrum master. I thought I was doing great, but I wasn't. I was still being a project manager. I then eventually, the place where I really became a good Scrum person was at ING Direct in Wilmington, Delaware. They hired me on to be a product owner. I had no clue what it meant to be a product owner. I took that role because it has the word owner in it. And I thought that would give me control. That's it. But I had a great Scrum master in that team who helped me learn all about Scrum. For years, I had no certifications, nothing. I just started doing product ownership and I loved it. And I just fell in love. And when Capital One bought ING Direct, one of my friends said, hey, we're doing a Scrum 101 and I need some help. I need a partner to pair with me to teach. And I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I'm a doer. I don't teach. What are you talking about? And she said, just come help me. And I said, fine, you owe me. And I walked out of that day going, oh my God, where has teaching been all my life? I love this. And then when Capital One bought us, I got pulled into the transformation team, coaching, training. But now my entire family runs on Scrum, by the way. We have a Scrum board. We do daily Scrum every day. My kids believe everybody in the world uses sticky notes and Sharpies. Yeah. They go around teaching all their friends. Don't you use sticky notes to manage your homework? You don't? Why? Yeah. Thank you for listening to my story.
Yes. So we have and we're coming up on 6 Eastern. We have a good question here. Alden has a.
Oh.
Jessica.
How do you resolve the inner conflicts that emerges with being neutral and colluding starts rearing its head and now learning to be more being overly client focused, resulting of team quality, health checks, and decreasing morale? Find yourself an accountability partner. Number 1. Find yourself the one person who can call BS on you. I have a couple of accountability partners in my life, right? So I'll go talk to them and say, oh, I just did this. And they can say, that's not serving your client's agenda. A lot of times you need to be able to tell your team that if I am stepping into your world, you got to tell me. Just because you're their coach doesn't mean you can do no wrong. And you are going to slip up. You are going to have those conflicts. And when you want to step in and tell them what to do, you have to figure out who you go talk to so that you can get your head squared back again. For me, that's what worked. Having good accountability partners everywhere. When I was coaching at Capital One, I actually had somebody outside the team who was another coach. And every day, at the end of the day, he and I would sit down and say, okay, so what happened today? And we just kind of debrief our day. And then we would be able to help each other out saying, I would ask him questions saying, why'd you do that? Was that your idea, their idea? So we had a pact every day, the end of the day. And we were both traveling to Chicago to do coaching. We were both staying at the same hotel. So we would come back, go back to the hotel over dinner, we would have a conversation. So find that one person who you can have that conversation with. Because you will be conflicted, absolutely be conflicted, 100%. Jamie, you're upside down.
I have one quick other question, and I'm sorry.
Yes.
That was regarding training and coaching.
Mhm.
Sometimes coaching can be bleed into training and vice versa. I've seen it done in other places where you're supposed to be doing this one thing, help train the project managers, and you end up, they say, oh, you need to coach them. It's kind of like there's no settling on the definition of what they're asking you to do. So
True.
in that situation, sometimes you set the tone and say, hey, either you're going to have me train and this is what this means to me. Is this aligned with what you guys want? Or do you guys want me to coach because this is what this means to me? And sometimes maybe you're in a situation and you didn't realize you're doing both now. So I don't know, how do you rectify that?
So I call that dancing in the moment. You have to be able to dance in the moment. This is why when we talked about this stuff here, right? The core competencies, you have to find skill set that works for all of these. You have to know how to do each one of these so that when required, you with complete self-awareness will take that hat on and off. Like Srikanth was saying, I'm going to take the tech lead hat off and the coach hat on. That's conflicting roles, so it's not possible to do. But as a scrum master, there will be times when in the same meeting, you might play all four roles. Right? I'll give you a quick example of a story. I helped some clients do some Scrum Master interviews. And one of my favorite interviews is talk about these 4 core competencies or the 4 hats the Scrum Master wears. And I say, so tell me how you feel about these 4 competencies and how you do this, how do you manage this? And this person basically said, the entire day, all the other candidates I was interviewing, they all said, well, I coach, I mentor, I facilitate, I teach. I'm like, brilliant, you can read. What does that doesn't tell me what you can or cannot do. So this one candidate walked in and said, can I share a story with you as I tell you about these 4 things and what I do? And I'm like, sure. And this gentleman said, so the company where I am now, when I first joined them, I was able to utilize all 4 hats quite well to understand what my role is and how to help my team. Said I walked into the team. So when I first came to the team told me, hey, Joe, do you want to come in? He said, my team was about to go into a sprint planning session. And they said, hey, do you want to come in and facilitate and coach us during a sprint planning session? He said, so I started off here as a coach. And I said, well, rather than me kind of just jump in and just tell you what to do, why don't I do some observation, right? I'll start here, I'll do some observation. That is coaching. And then I'll see where you are and maybe I'll ask you some questions. So during the sprint planning, I was observing, I asked them a lot of questions to understand where they were coming from. And then they were getting into planning the thing, and I realized that they hadn't talked about the sprint goal. So I jumped in here with my trainer hat and said, by the way, if I could interrupt, hey, do you know about the sprint goal? Scrum Guide says this. I put on my trainer hat and I was teaching them what the sprint goal was all about. Then I walked into my mentoring shoes and I shared a story about how the sprint goal had helped my previous team really focus on the work in the sprint. And once I was done with that, I came here and said, now that you know that, would you be willing to allow me to facilitate the creation of a sprint goal? And once we were done, I came back here and said, may I ask you some feedback on how this session went and what we can do differently next time? So for me, that is the way you guys as Scrum Masters need to wear these 4 hats. These 4 competencies are yours, and you have to figure out, but you have to be aware, okay, I'm jumping into a coaching mode, so I'm going to be actively listening, I'm going to ask powerful questions. I'm in a mentoring mode, I'm going to tell you a story, I'm going to give you advice. I'm teaching, so I have an agenda, I'm going to share my knowledge. I'm facilitating, I'm back to being neutral. So you have to figure out how you can dance in the moment between the 4 competencies. that help?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Good question.
Okay, and we're coming up on we're a little over an hour. If I don't know how you feel, I don't know if you want to answer a couple more questions or if people want to jump out, and then we can. Anybody wants to stick around, you can answer a couple more. It's up to you.
I like I said, my daughter has gone to a protest, so if you can keep me occupied for a little longer and keep my brain away from complete worry, I'll be grateful.
All right.
Okay, so there's a great article Jamie shared. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is some of the books that I was talking about, I'll actually put that into my slides. Rob, I'll send you a new version of my slides. So then, and I'll attach the 2 articles I was talking about. So
That's
one
good.
was proactive coaching, which were the questions. And the other one is from Lisa Atkins about the coaching stance.
Right. What I'll do is I'll email everybody a link to the video when we post it, and I'll attach the your 2 PDFs.
Perfect.
But I see a couple of people dropping off. Thank you guys for.
Thank you very much. Hopefully this helped you learn a little more about coaching skills.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. So nice to see you.
I know, Linda, it was nice to see you again.
Yeah, stay well, and I wish your daughter safety. I'm sure everything will
Me
work out.
too. Thank you.
Take care. See you next time. Stay well,
Yeah,
everybody.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'd say if people are jumping off, thank you all for joining us. We've had,
Yes,
this is our 5th in a series of the meetups. We have a few more coming up. And whenever I email you, we'll put a link there so you can see whatever free meetups we've got coming up. And even if you're out of state, if you want to join us, we have space for you. Got a pretty large account. But I think the people, Anu's information will be attached to the email, and you all get my email, and it's at michiganagiletraining.com. And if either of us can help you, please let us know.
Absolutely.
And if I can't help you or Anu can't, we know tons of people, so we'll point you in the right direction.
Yes, we will.
All right. Anybody else any questions before we say goodnight? All right, so I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you, Anu.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
you,
you.
Anu.
Rob, thank you so much for having me here. This was fun. Go Buckeyes! Buckeyes, go Bucks! Ohio again.
Oh,
We're
no.
going to end it with the Michigan Wolverines. All right.
No.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Thanks, Anu.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank you.